The scout ship Vantor's Eye moved quietly through the dark. Its pilot, a young Empire officer named Dresk, checked his screens one more time. Everything looked calm. Too calm. Dresk was on a simple mission. Fly to the edge of human space. Take some scans. Come back. Nothing more. His commanders had told him this would be an easy job. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only joined the wider community of species 40 years ago. Everyone knew humans were weak. Everyone knew humans were slow to build good technology. Everyone knew humans needed protection from real threats. That is what the Empire had always said. Dresk leaned back in his chair. The stars outside his window did not move. His ship was small, fast, and hard to see on radar. It was built for missions exactly like this one. Quiet, safe, simple. "Command, this is Vantor's Eye," Dresk said into his comm. "I have entered the outer edge of human border space. All scans are normal. I see no threats." There was a pause. Then a voice answered from far away. "Copy that, Vantor's Eye. Continue forward. Get closer to the third planet. We want full scans of any human activity there." "Understood," Dresk said. He pushed his ship forward, deeper into the quiet dark. The third planet was small, blue, and green. It looked peaceful from far away. Dresk had read reports about this planet before his mission. It was called Earth. Humans called it home. As his ship moved closer, something strange happened. A small light blinked on his control panel. Dresk frowned. He had never seen this warning before. He tapped the screen, trying to understand what it meant. "Command," he said. "I'm getting an unusual signal. It's coming from—" His words stopped. The ship shook hard. Red lights filled the small cabin. Alarms screamed all around him. Dresk grabbed the controls, trying to understand what was happening. Outside his window, something moved fast. Too fast. He could barely see it. Just a shadow, a blur gone before his eyes could focus. "Command, I am under attack. I repeat, I am under—" The transmission cut off. Silence filled the space where the Vantor's Eye used to be. 3 days later, in the heart of Empire territory, a meeting room filled with high-ranking officers. The room was large, with a big window showing thousands of stars outside. At the head of the table sat Grand Admiral Kelvex, a tall alien with gray skin and sharp eyes. He had led Empire fleets for over 200 years. He had seen wars. He had seen weak species destroyed by strong ones. He believed the Empire was the strongest power in the galaxy, and nothing could challenge that. "So," Kelvex said, his voice calm but firm, "tell me again what happened to my scout ship." A younger officer named Sarah stood up. She held a datapad in her hands, her fingers slightly shaking. "Sir, the Vantor's Eye was performing routine scans near human space. Contact was lost 3 days ago. The last transmission mentioned an unusual signal, followed by what sounded like an attack." Kelvex raised one eyebrow. "An attack? By humans? We are not certain, sir. It could have been a technical malfunction, a meteor strike, a system failure. We have no proof it was an attack." Kelvex laughed, a low, dry sound. "Humans do not have the technology to attack an Empire scout ship. Their fleet consists of slow cargo ships and a handful of outdated defense cruisers. They barely understand faster-than-light travel. This was likely a malfunction, nothing more." Sarah hesitated. "Sir, there is something else." "What is it?" "Before contact was lost, we received a partial data burst. It's corrupted, but our analysts managed to recover part of it." She placed the data pad on the table. A blurry image appeared on the main screen, the shape of something large, sharp-edged, and unfamiliar. The room went quiet. Kelvex stood up slowly and walked toward the screen. He studied the image for a long moment. It was not clear. The edges were fuzzy, distorted by the bad signal. But even through the static, he could see the shape was strange, long, angular, built differently than anything the Empire had seen from any known species. "What is this?" Kelvex asked quietly. "We don't know, sir," Sarah said. "It doesn't match any known ship design in our database. Not Empire, not human, not any of the other species we have contact with." Kelvek stared at the image for a long time. Something about it made him uneasy, though he would never admit that out loud. "Send another scout," he finally said. "A better one. I want real answers, not blurry pictures and guesses." Far away, on a planet called Earth, deep underground in a hidden military base, a woman named Commander Elena Voss stood in front of a large screen. She was in her 40s, with short dark hair and calm, steady eyes. She had spent the last 15 years of her life preparing for this exact moment. Behind her, dozens of engineers and officers worked at their stations. Screens showed maps, ship designs, and fleet numbers. This was not a small operation. This was something the rest of the galaxy did not know existed. A young officer approached her. "Commander, the Empire scout ship destruction has been confirmed. Their sensors caught a partial image of the Reckoner before we jammed the signal." Elena nodded slowly. "Good. Let them see a little. Let them wonder. Won't that make them suspicious, ma'am? They might send more ships." "They will," Elena said. "That's exactly what we want." The officer looked confused. "Ma'am?" Elena turned to face him. Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. "For 40 years, the Empire has treated humanity like children. They gave us technology scraps. They called us primitive. They laughed at our questions in council meetings. They thought we were too weak to matter." She walked toward a large window that looked out over an enormous underground hangar. Below them, massive shapes sat in rows, covered in shadow. Ships. Many, many ships. Their exact shape was hard to see in the dim light, but their size alone was impressive. While they laughed, Elena continued, "We listened. We learned. We took every piece of technology they gave us and we studied it. We reverse engineered it. We found its weaknesses. And then we built something better." The young officer stared down at the ships in awe. "How long have we been building this fleet?" 15 years, Elena said. "In secret. While the Empire thought we were farming and building simple satellites, we were preparing for a war we knew was coming." "Why did you know it was coming, ma'am?" Elena's eyes grew distant for a moment. "Because species like the Empire always come back. They always test the ones they think are weak. Sooner or later they try to take something: land, resources, control. We needed to be ready before that day arrived." Back in Empire space, a new scout ship prepared for launch. This one was different from the last. It was larger, better armed, and carried advanced sensors. Its pilot, a seasoned officer named Torvax, had flown dozens of successful missions. He was confident, sharp, and not easily frightened. "Command, this is Ironclaw. Beginning approach into human border territory." "Copy, Ironclaw. Proceed with caution. Full sensor sweep authorized." Torvax guided his ship forward. Unlike Dresk before him, he moved slowly, carefully, watching every reading on his screen. He was not going to be caught off guard. As his ship crossed further into human space, his sensors began picking up strange readings. Faint energy signatures. Small, quick movements at the edge of his scanning range. He adjusted his instruments, trying to get a clearer picture. "Command, I'm detecting multiple small objects. They could be debris, or..." His sensors suddenly lit up with a massive energy spike. Torvax's eyes widened. Directly ahead of him, hidden behind an asteroid cluster, something large began to move. It was not debris. It was not a malfunction. It was a ship, and it was unlike anything he had ever seen. The ship was sleek but powerful looking, its hull covered in strange plating that seemed to bend light around it, making it hard to focus on. Weapon systems along its sides glowed with a soft blue light. It moved with a grace that did not match anything in the Empire's database of known technology. "Command, I have visual confirmation of an unknown vessel. Repeat, unknown vessel. It does not match human designs in our files. This is not..." A bright flash of light erupted from the strange ship. Torvax's screen filled with warnings. Shields failing. Hull breach imminent. He tried to turn his ship, Tried to escape, but it was too fast. Far too fast. Before he could send another word, his connection went dark. But this time something different happened. As his ship was struck, his automated systems triggered an emergency data burst, a final desperate attempt to send everything his sensors had gathered back to Empire Command. It was garbled, damaged, and incomplete. But it was enough. In the Empire Command Center, alarms rang out as the emergency transmission arrived. Grand Admiral Kelvex rushed into the room, his calm expression now replaced with something closer to concern. "Play it," he ordered. The screen flickered to life, showing broken pieces of data, sensor readings, ship specifications, weapon signatures. Analysts worked quickly to piece together what they could. Slowly, an image began to form on the main screen. This time, it was clearer than before. The room fell completely silent. On the screen was the full shape of the mysterious ship. Sleek, powerful, covered in advanced plating, bristling with weapons the Empire had never seen before. The design was elegant, but clearly built for war. Nothing about it looked primitive. Nothing about it looked weak. Sarah, standing near the back of the room, felt her stomach drop. "Sir, the weapon signatures we recovered. They're reading power levels close to our own capital ships." Kelvex stared at the screen, his sharp eyes narrowing. For the first time in a very long while, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Uncertainty. "That's impossible," he said quietly. "Humans have had space travel for less than 50 years. They should not have technology like this. They should not have ships like this." "Sir," Sarah said carefully, "what if we were wrong about them? What if they've been hiding their true capability this whole time?" Kelvex did not answer right away. He kept staring at the image on the screen. The sharp lines, the glowing weapons, the design that suggested years, maybe decades of careful planning. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and serious. "Contact the full council. Tell them we need an emergency session, and prepare our home fleet for possible deployment." "Sir, are we going to war with the humans?" Kelvex turned to face the young officer, his expression grim. "I don't know what we are doing yet," he said, "but I know one thing for certain. Humans weren't supposed to build warships like this, and now we need to find out why they did." Outside the command center windows, the stars shone quietly, indifferent to the fear now spreading through the Empire's highest halls of power. Somewhere far away, on a small blue planet the Empire had once dismissed as unimportant, Commander Elena Voss watched her screens with calm, patient eyes. The Empire had finally noticed, and humanity was ready. The Empire's Grand Council chamber was a place of history. Its walls were made of dark polished stone, brought from 100 different worlds the Empire had conquered or absorbed over the last 1,000 years. Tall windows showed a view of the Empire's home system, with its bright twin suns and busy orbital shipyards. This was the room where the biggest decisions in the galaxy were made. Today, the room was full. Every council member sat in their seat, their faces showing different levels of worry, doubt, and confusion. At the center of the room, Grand Admiral Kelvex stood before them all, ready to explain what had happened. "2 scout ships," Kelvex said, his voice carrying through the silent chamber. "Both destroyed near human border space. Both destroyed by unknown vessels showing weapon signatures close to our own capital ships." A council member near the front, an older alien named Yanis, raised his hand slightly. "Admiral, are you certain these attacks came from humans? Could this be another species operating near their territory?" "Our scans place the vessels within confirmed human border space," Kelvex answered. "No other species has ships stationed there. It is possible, though unlikely, that this was some outside force. But all evidence points to humans." The room broke into quiet conversation. Voices overlapped, some confused, some doubtful. Yanis spoke again, louder this time. "Forgive me, Admiral, but this seems difficult to believe. Humans joined Galactic society only 40 years ago. When we first made contact with them, they had barely developed simple orbital rockets. We gave them faster-than-light engine technology as a gesture of goodwill. Are you suggesting that in 40 years they somehow built warships capable of matching our own? I am not suggesting anything, Kelvec said firmly. I am reporting what the data shows. The rest is for this council to decide. Another council member, a sharp-eyed woman named Director Ashla, stood up. She represented the Empire's intelligence division, and her words carried weight in matters like this. If I may, Admiral, I'd like to remind the Council of something important. When humans were introduced into galactic society, our diplomatic teams noted something unusual about them, even then. Go on, Kelvec said. They asked very few questions about weapons or war, Ashla said. At the time, our analysts believed this meant humans were a peaceful species, uninterested in military matters. But now, looking back, I wonder if it meant something different. Perhaps they were not asking questions because they did not want us to know what they were already doing. The room grew quiet again, this time with a heavier kind of silence. Kelvex nodded slowly. Explain further. Ashla walked toward the center of the room, standing beside Kelvex. 40 years ago, when we first met humanity, they had rockets that could barely reach their own moon. We gave them access to basic FTL drive technology, thinking it would take them decades to fully understand it, let alone improve upon it. We assumed they would remain dependent on Empire trade and protection for at least another century. But, Kelvex asked, but humans are different from other species we've encountered, Ashla continued. They learn quickly, they adapt quickly, and most importantly, they are very good at hiding their true intentions behind a friendly, harmless appearance. A younger council member spoke up nervously. Are you saying we misjudge them completely? Ashla turned to face him. I am saying it is possible, and if that is true, we need to understand what else we have misjudged. While the council argued and debated, deep in Empire records archives, an analyst named Tomrek sat alone in a small room, surrounded by screens filled with old data. He had been assigned a simple task: go through historical records of early human-Empire contact and look for anything unusual. It seemed like a boring assignment at first, but the more he searched, the more troubled he became. He pulled up old reports from the first diplomatic meetings with Earth, 40 years ago. Video recordings showed human representatives sitting across from Empire officials, calm and polite, asking about trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and basic technology sharing. Tomrek noticed something strange. In almost every meeting, the human representatives seemed to steer conversations away from military topics. When Empire officials offered to discuss defense treaties or protection agreements, the humans always redirected the conversation toward economic and scientific cooperation instead. At the time, Empire diplomats saw this as a sign of humanity's peaceful nature. Now, looking at it with fresh eyes, Tomrek wondered if it meant something else entirely. He kept searching. He found records of technology exchanges, the FTL drive schematics given to humans, along with basic shield technology and simple energy weapon designs. These were meant to help humans defend themselves against space pirates and other minor threats, nothing more. But then Tomrek found something odd. 20 years ago, Empire trade ships reported a strange pattern. Human orders for certain raw materials, rare metals, energy crystals, advanced alloys, had quietly increased year after year. At the time, this was explained as humans expanding their civilian infrastructure, building new cities and space stations. Tomrek pulled up trade records, comparing numbers over 2 decades. His eyes widened as he worked through the data. The amount of rare materials humans had purchased over the last 20 years was far more than what would be needed for simple civilian infrastructure. In fact, the numbers matched something much more specific, something Tomrek had seen before in Empire records: warship construction. His hands trembled slightly as he typed a quick message to his superior. Director Ashla, I believe I've found something important. Please review immediately. Meanwhile, back on Earth, deep within the same hidden underground base, Commander Elena Voss walked through a long hallway with a team of engineers following close behind her. They passed through several security checkpoints before entering a massive control room. Large screens covered every wall, showing detailed information about fleet positions, resource management, and construction schedules. At the center of the room, a large table displayed a holographic map of nearby star systems. Elena studied it closely, her expression calm but focused. A man in a military uniform approached her. General Marcus Webb, her second-in-command. He had gray hair and tired eyes, but his posture remained sharp and disciplined. "Commander," he said, "reports confirm the Empire held an emergency council session 2 days ago. Our intelligence sources inside their diplomatic network suggest they are seriously debating whether we pose a genuine threat." Elena nodded slowly. "Good. That means our plan is working exactly as expected." "Some of the younger officers are nervous, ma'am," Marcus said. "They're worried the Empire might launch a full attack before we're fully ready." Elena turned to face him. "We've been preparing for this exact possibility for 15 years, Marcus. Every ship in our fleet, every weapon system, every defense grid, all of it was built with this moment in mind. But the Empire's full military force is far larger than what we've shown them so far," Marcus pointed out. "If they decide to commit their entire home fleet against us, they won't," Elena interrupted calmly. "Not yet. The Empire doesn't rush into full-scale war. They investigate first. They gather intelligence. They send diplomats before soldiers. That gives us time." Marcus still looked uneasy. "And if we're wrong?" Elena's eyes grew serious. "Then we fight. And we make sure they understand exactly why underestimating humanity was their biggest mistake." She walked toward the holographic map, pointing to a cluster of stars near the border between Empire and human territory. "Our sensors detected another Empire scout ship approaching this region 2 hours ago. Smaller than the last one, moving carefully, staying at a distance." "They're being more cautious now," Marcus said. "As expected," Elena replied. "They're realizing we're not what they thought we were. Every step from here forward, they'll move slower, more carefully. That gives us more time to finish deployment of our outer defense fleet. And after that?" Elena's expression didn't change, but her voice carried a quiet weight. "After that, we make sure the entire galaxy knows humanity is no longer a species to be underestimated." Back in Empire space, Director Ashla stood in a private meeting room with Grand Admiral Kelvex and a small group of trusted advisors. Tomrek's findings from the archives had reached her within hours, and the implications were serious enough that she requested an immediate private discussion before bringing anything back to the full council. "Show him what you found," Ashla said to Tomrek, who stood nervously near the door. Tomrek activated a nearby screen, displaying the trade data he had gathered. Numbers and graphs filled the display, showing a clear upward trend in human resource purchases over the last 2 decades. "These numbers," Tomrek explained, "match patterns we've seen before, specifically during the early stages of large-scale warship construction programs. Other species we've encountered follow similar purchasing patterns when secretly building military fleets." Kelvex studied the graphs carefully, his expression darkening. "How long have they been doing this?" "Based on the data, it appears human resource purchases began increasing significantly around 20 years ago," Tomrek said. "The pattern has remained consistent and steadily increased every year since." 20 years, Kelvex repeated quietly. "That means they started building this fleet not long after we first made contact with them." Ashla stepped forward. "Which suggests something troubling, Admiral. It's possible humans never trusted us from the very beginning. Perhaps they saw our early diplomatic gestures not as goodwill, but as a potential threat to prepare against." "Or," said one of the other advisors, an older alien named Counselor Drevis, "perhaps they simply learned from our own history. The Empire did not become the dominant power in this galaxy through peaceful means alone. We conquered dozens of species who were unprepared to defend themselves. Perhaps humans studied our history and decided they would not become the next name on that list." The room fell silent for a long moment. Kelvex finally spoke, his voice heavy. "Whatever their reasoning, the fact remains clear. Humans have spent the last 20 years secretly preparing for exactly this kind of confrontation, and we walked into it believing they were still the same primitive species we first met 4 decades ago." "What do we do now, Admiral?" Ashla asked. Kelvex was quiet for a long moment, staring at the data on the screen. Finally, he spoke. We can't afford to underestimate them any further. I want a full battle fleet prepared and sent to the border of human space. Not to attack, not yet, but to send a clear message. We want to see exactly what they're hiding, and we want them to know the Empire will not simply look away. Sending a full fleet could provoke them, sir, Tom Rex said carefully. If they feel threatened, they might respond aggressively. Kelvex's eyes hardened. If they truly have built a fleet capable of matching our own, then provoking a small response now is far better than discovering the full truth during an unprepared, larger war later. We need to know what we're truly facing. 3 days later, a massive Empire battle fleet gathered near the edge of human border space. Hundreds of ships filled the dark space, their engines glowing bright against the black background of stars. At the head of the fleet, the Empire's flagship, a massive vessel called the Dominion's Will, led the formation forward. Aboard the flagship, Fleet Commander Voran stood on the bridge watching his sensors carefully. He was a proud officer, confident in Empire technology and military strength. He had led fleets against pirate forces, rebellious colonies, and minor threats throughout his career, always emerging victorious. Approaching human border territory, reported his navigation officer. No hostile activity detected yet. Keep all scanners active, Voran ordered. I want full awareness of everything in this system. As the fleet moved deeper into the region, sensors began picking up unusual readings. Small energy signatures, similar to what had been detected during the previous scout ship encounters, began appearing on their screens. Scattered, faint, but growing stronger the further they advanced. Commander, said a young sensor officer, his voice slightly nervous. I'm picking up multiple energy signatures ahead. They're arranged in a pattern. Put it on the main screen, Voran ordered. The image appeared before them, dozens, then hundreds of small energy signatures scattered across a wide area of space, positioned in careful, deliberate formations. Voran's confident expression faltered slightly. That's not debris. That's not natural. Sir, the sensor officer said, his voice trembling now. I believe those are ships. Powering up, the bridge fell into stunned silence as more and more energy signatures appeared on their screens, spreading out across the entire region like a web, slowly tightening around the approaching Empire fleet. Voran stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. For the first time since taking command of this fleet, a small, uncomfortable feeling crept into his chest. Doubt. Signal command, he said quietly. Tell them we've found the human fleet. Outside the flagship's window, hundreds of unknown lights began to shimmer in the darkness, slowly rising like distant stars coming to life. A silent, waiting army, hidden in the shadows of space, finally ready to be seen. On the bridge of the Dominion's Will, Fleet Commander Voran stared at the hundreds of energy signatures spreading across his screen. For a moment, nobody spoke. The bridge crew waited for his orders, their faces tense. Confirm those readings again, Voran said, his voice steady despite the doubt growing inside him. I want to know exactly what we're looking at before I make any decision. The sensor officer worked quickly, adjusting his instruments. Sir, confirmed. Multiple vessel signatures, approximately 300 ships spread across a wide defensive formation. Power levels are significant. Significant how? Voran asked. The officer hesitated before answering. Comparable to our own mid-sized warships, sir. Some readings suggest even higher output. A murmur spread across the bridge. Voran raised a hand for silence. This could still be a bluff, he said, more to reassure himself than his crew. Humans are known for clever tricks, not true military strength. These signatures could be decoys, empty shells designed to look powerful without any real firepower behind them. Behind him, a younger officer named Lieutenant Kessa spoke carefully. Sir, with respect, decoys don't usually generate this much sustained power. If this were a bluff, wouldn't they eventually need to power down to avoid revealing weaknesses in their design? Voran turned to her, his eyes sharp. Are you suggesting we retreat, Lieutenant? No, sir, Kessa said quickly. I'm suggesting we proceed with caution. Voran considered her words for a moment. He was a proud commander, confident in Empire's strength, but not foolish enough to ignore clear warning signs. Still, retreating now in front of his entire fleet, in front of the Empire's watching eyes back home, was not something his pride could easily accept. "We hold formation," he finally decided. "Send a diplomatic signal to the human fleet, demand they identify themselves and explain their military presence at our shared border." "Yes, sir." Aboard one of the human ships, deep within the defensive formation, Commander Elena Voss received the Empire's transmission request. She sat calmly in her command chair, watching the massive Empire fleet on her main screen. Hundreds of enemy ships, larger than her own vessels individually, filled the darkness ahead. "They're requesting communication, Commander," said her communications officer, a young woman named Naomi. "Put them through," Elena said. The screen flickered, showing the stern face of Fleet Commander Varan. His expression was a careful mix of confidence and barely hidden concern. "This is Fleet Commander Varan of the Empire 3rd Battle Fleet," he said. "You are currently within contested border space with an unauthorized military presence. Identify yourselves and explain your intentions immediately." Elena's expression remained calm and composed. "Commander Varan, this is Commander Elena Voss of the Earth Defense Fleet. I believe you already know our intentions. You sent 2 scout ships into our territory without authorization. Both were engaged as a defensive measure." Varan's jaw tightened slightly. "Those were routine reconnaissance missions, nothing more." "Reconnaissance missions do not require deep incursions into sovereign territory," Elena replied evenly. "But we're not here to argue about semantics, Commander. We're here to make something very clear." "And what is that?" Varan asked, his tone hardening. Elena leaned forward slightly. "Humanity is no longer the species you first met 40 years ago. We are not weak. We are not primitive. And we will not be tested, threatened, or underestimated any further." The bridge of the Dominion's will fell into tense silence as Varan processed her words. Around him, his officers exchanged uneasy glances. "That sounds very close to a declaration of hostility, Commander Voss," Varan said carefully. "It's a statement of fact," Elena replied. "What you do with that information is entirely up to you and your empire. But know this. If your fleet advances any further into our territory, we will consider it an act of war, and we will respond accordingly." The transmission ended abruptly from the human side, leaving Varan staring at a blank screen, his frustration barely contained. "Arrogant," he muttered under his breath. Then louder to his crew, "Full defensive formation. Charge weapon systems, but do not fire unless fired upon. Let's see if their confidence matches their capability." Back on Earth, in the underground command center, General Marcus Webb stood beside Elena's now empty command chair, watching the same transmission that had just ended. He turned to a nearby officer. "Status report on our forward fleet? All 300 ships holding formation, sir," the officer replied. "Weapon systems fully charged. Shield generators operating at maximum efficiency." Marcus studied the tactical display, watching the Empire fleet's movements carefully. "They're not retreating." "No, sir," the officer confirmed. "Empire fleet is holding position, weapons charged but not advancing further." Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. 15 years of preparation had led to this exact moment, and despite all their planning, the uncertainty of real conflict still weighed heavily on him. Elena walked back into the command center, her expression unreadable. "Status?" "Standoff, ma'am," Marcus reported. "Neither side has fired yet." "Good," Elena said. "That means they're still uncertain about us. Uncertainty makes them cautious. Cautious enemies make mistakes." "And if they don't make a mistake?" Marcus asked. Elena's eyes moved toward the tactical display, studying the Empire fleet's positioning carefully. "Then we remind them why they should be afraid." 2 hours passed in tense silence. Neither fleet moved. Neither fleet fired. The Empire ships remained in their formation, weapons charged but inactive. The human fleet mirrored their stance, patient and unwavering. Then, without warning, A single Empire cruiser near the edge of the formation broke away from the group. "Sir," Lieutenant Kessa reported urgently to Voran. "The Ashvane has left formation. They're moving toward the human fleet's outer perimeter." Voran's eyes narrowed. That wasn't authorized. "Order them back into formation immediately." "Attempting contact now, sir," Kessa said, working quickly at her console. "No response from the Ashvane." On the main screen, the Empire cruiser continued its advance, moving closer to the human defensive line. Voran felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "What are they doing?" he muttered. Suddenly, alarms blared across the Ashvane's internal systems. On the bridge of the Dominion's Will, officers watched in horror as the cruiser's shields flickered violently under an unseen assault. Weapon fire erupted from seemingly empty space near the human formation, striking the Ashvane with precise, devastating accuracy. "They're firing!" Kessa shouted. The Ashvane's hull buckled under the assault, explosions rippling across its surface before the entire ship broke apart in a bright flash of light and debris. Silence gripped the Dominion's Will's bridge. "That ship broke formation without authorization," Voran said slowly, trying to process what had just happened. "This wasn't an unprovoked attack. It was—" "Sir, incoming transmission from Commander Voss," Kessa interrupted. "Put her through," Voran said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Elena's calm face appeared on the screen once more. "Commander Voran, your vessel crossed into our defensive perimeter without authorization. We warned you clearly what would happen if that occurred. Your fleet just destroyed one of my ships," Voran shouted, his composure finally breaking. "Your ship ignored multiple hailing attempts and continued advancing toward our fleet's position." Elena replied evenly. "We gave clear warnings. Your commander chose not to heed them." Voran's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "This is an act of war." "No, Commander," Elena said calmly. "This is a defensive response to an unauthorized incursion. If you wish to avoid further conflict, I suggest you maintain your fleet's current position and refrain from any further aggressive movement." The transmission ended once more, leaving Voran staring furiously at the empty screen. "Sir?" Kessa said carefully. "Orders?" Voran took a deep breath, trying to regain his composure. Attacking now, in anger, would be exactly the kind of reckless decision his years of training warned him against. But retreating now would show weakness in front of his entire fleet, and more importantly, in front of the Empire's highest command watching from afar. "Hold position," he finally ordered. "Full defensive readiness. We will not advance further, but we will not retreat either." As tension held steady between the two fleets, something unexpected happened. Deep within the human formation, ships began repositioning themselves, moving with precise, coordinated movements that seemed almost impossible for a fleet this large. "Sir," Kessa reported, watching the movements carefully, "the human fleet is reorganizing. Their coordination is unusually precise." Voran studied the tactical display, watching as 300 human ships moved in perfect unison, their formation shifting smoothly without any visible confusion or delay. "How are they moving like that?" he muttered. "That level of coordination should require extensive communication between each vessel. There's no visible lag, no hesitation." An analyst nearby spoke up nervously. "Sir, I believe their ships might be using some form of advanced network targeting and movement system, essentially allowing their entire fleet to move and react as a single unit." Voran's frustration grew deeper. Every new piece of information about the human fleet only made things more troubling. Their technology, their coordination, their tactical precision, none of it matched the primitive, disorganized species the Empire had expected to find. "This isn't a defense fleet built in a hurry," Voran said quietly, almost to himself. "This is something they've spent years perfecting." Beside him, Kessa nodded slowly. "Sir, I don't think we're looking at humanity's full military capability. I think this might just be a small portion of what they actually have." The thought hung heavily in the air, unsettling everyone on the bridge. Meanwhile, in the human command center, Elena watched the Empire fleet's confused, hesitant movements with quiet satisfaction. Marcus approached her side. "They're rattled," he observed. "As expected," Elena said. "They came here expecting an easy show of force against a weaker species. Instead, they found something they don't understand, and that fear will work in our favor." "Do you think they'll retreat?" Marcus asked. "Eventually," Elena said. "But not before reporting everything back to their Empire leadership. And that's exactly what we want." "Why is that what we want, Commander?" Elena turned to face him, her expression thoughtful. "Because right now the Empire believes they're looking at humanity's full military strength. They believe these 300 ships represent everything we've built." Marcus's eyes widened slightly as understanding dawned on him. "But this fleet isn't our main force." "No," Elena said quietly. "This is merely our border defense squadron, a fraction of what we've actually built over the past 15 years. "Where is the rest of our fleet, Commander?" Elena's gaze drifted toward a hidden section of the tactical display, an area marked with heavy encryption, invisible to anyone without the highest security clearance. "Somewhere safe," she said simply. "Somewhere the Empire will never think to look, at least not until we're ready for them to know." Marcus studied her expression carefully. "Commander, if this is only a fraction of our forces, why send only this squadron to face the Empire's fleet? Why not reveal our true strength now, while we have the advantage of surprise?" Elena's eyes grew distant, thoughtful. "Because the Empire isn't the true threat we've been preparing for, Marcus. They're simply the first obstacle standing between us and something far more dangerous." Marcus frowned, confusion crossing his face. "What do you mean?" Before Elena could answer, an urgent alert flashed across the main screen. Naomi's voice rang out from the communications station, tense and urgent. "Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission from Deep Space Monitoring. Something's approaching from beyond the outer boundary marker." Elena's calm expression shifted slightly, a flicker of genuine concern crossing her face for the first time. "Show me," she said quietly. The screen changed, displaying a distant, unfamiliar energy signature far beyond both the Empire and human fleets, moving steadily closer from the depths of unexplored space. Its size was massive, larger than anything either fleet had encountered before, and its power readings were unlike anything in either species' database. The room fell into stunned silence as everyone stared at the ominous unknown presence steadily approaching from the darkness beyond. "Commander," Naomi said, her voice trembling slightly. What is that?" Elena stared at the screen, her jaw tightening as old fears she had carried silently for 15 years finally began to surface. "That," she said quietly, "is the reason we've spent 15 years preparing for war." The unknown signature grew larger on every screen in the human command center. Elena Voss stood frozen for a moment, staring at the massive energy reading approaching from beyond the outer boundary marker. 15 years of careful planning suddenly felt fragile against the weight of what she was seeing now. "Commander," Naomi said again, her voice shaking slightly. "Orders." Elena forced herself to breathe steadily. Panic would help no one, especially not now. "Pull up everything we have on that signature, compare it against our archives." The analyst worked quickly, cross-referencing the strange energy readings against every database they had access to. Marcus stood beside Elena, watching her carefully. "Commander, you said this is what we've been preparing for," he said quietly. "You need to tell me what that means. Right now." Elena's eyes remained fixed on the screen. 15 years ago, before we began building this fleet, our deep space monitoring stations picked up something unusual. A signal, extremely faint, coming from far beyond charted space. It repeated in a pattern unlike anything natural. "What kind of pattern?" "A warning," Elena said. "At least that's what our scientists eventually concluded after years of study. The pattern matched fragments of ancient data buried in old Earth records dating back thousands of years, long before humanity ever left its home planet." Marcus frowned. "Ancient records of what?" "Of something called the Devourers," Elena said quietly. An old, powerful force that swept through this section of the galaxy thousands of years ago, destroying entire civilizations, consuming their resources, and moving on. Every advanced species that existed here before humanity either fled, hid, or was completely erased. The room grew quiet as those nearby overheard the conversation. "You're saying that thing approaching us now," Marcus said slowly, "is one of these devourers?" "I believe so," Elena said. "The energy signature matches old records almost perfectly. If I'm right, this isn't the first time it has appeared in this region. It simply hasn't returned in a very long time." "And the Empire," Marcus said, understanding dawning on his face. "They have no idea this threat exists." "No," Elena confirmed. "The Empire's history only goes back a few hundred years in this region. Whatever knowledge older species had about the Devourers was lost long before the Empire ever rose to power." Aboard the Dominion's Will, Fleet Commander Voran also stared at his own sensors, watching the same massive, unknown signature approaching from deep space. His earlier anger toward the human fleet had faded, replaced entirely by a growing sense of dread. "Report," he demanded. "Sir, the signature continues approaching at significant speed," his sensor officer said. "Power readings are unlike anything in our database. If our estimates are correct, this could be larger than any vessel either fleet possesses, possibly larger than our own capital ships combined." Voran's throat tightened. "Contact Empire Command immediately. Full priority alert." Lieutenant Kessa worked quickly at her console. "Sir, I'm also detecting the human fleet's sensors are locked onto the same target. They seem just as concerned as we are." Voran turned toward the human fleet's position on his screen. For the first time since arriving at this border, the human ships were no longer focused on the Empire fleet at all. Every one of their sensors, every weapon system, had shifted attention entirely toward the new, unknown threat. "They're afraid of it too," Voran murmured. "Sir," Kessa said, "should we consider reopening communication with Commander Voss?" Voran hesitated. Pride told him to remain firm, to treat the humans as a hostile threat regardless of circumstances. But something deeper, a growing instinct built from years of military experience, told him this situation had changed entirely. "Open a channel," he finally ordered. "Let's hear what she has to say." Elena's screen flickered as an incoming transmission request appeared. She glanced at Marcus briefly before accepting the call. Voran's face appeared, his earlier anger replaced by visible unease. "Commander Voss," he said, his voice noticeably more careful than before. "I assume you're seeing the same reading we are." "We are," Elena confirmed. "Do you know what that is?" Voran asked directly. Elena considered her next words carefully. Revealing too much information could be dangerous, but withholding critical knowledge in this moment could prove far more costly for both fleets. "We believe it to be an ancient threat known as the Devourers," she said. "A force that swept through this region of the galaxy thousands of years ago, destroying civilizations far more advanced than either of ours." Voran's expression darkened. "And you knew about this threat before now?" "We suspected," Elena said. "Fragments of old records suggested something dangerous once existed in this region. We built our fleet not to challenge the Empire, Commander Voran, but to prepare for something we feared would eventually return." Voran was silent for a long moment, processing this new information. "You built an entire secret war fleet based on old legends? Would you have believed us if we simply told your diplomats 40 years ago?" Elena asked calmly. "Would the Empire have taken an ancient threat seriously, coming from a species you considered primitive and unimportant?" Voran's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Deep down, he understood the painful truth in her words. The Empire's arrogance likely would have dismissed such warnings entirely, exactly as Elena suggested. "What do you propose we do now?" he finally asked. Elena's expression remained steady, though the weight of the moment was clear in her voice. "Right now, our two fleets combined are still likely no match for what's approaching. If the old records are accurate, previous civilizations far more advanced than either of us were completely destroyed by this force. Then what hope do we have?" Varan asked, frustration creeping into his voice. Time, Elena said. We need time to prepare a proper defense, and more importantly, we need every available resource, including the full strength of the Empire's military, not just this single fleet. Varan's eyes narrowed slightly. You're asking for an alliance. I'm asking for cooperation, Elena corrected. For the survival of both our species and possibly countless others in this galaxy. Back in Empire High Command, Grand Admiral Kelvex received the emergency transmission from Varan's fleet with growing alarm. The council chamber, once filled with tense debate about humanity's secret military buildup, now faced a far greater and more immediate concern. Play the sensor data again, Kelvex ordered. The massive energy signature appeared once more on the main screen, its size and power readings sending a wave of uneasy silence through the room. Director Ashla studied the readings carefully. Admiral, if these power levels are accurate, this vessel, or whatever it truly is, could pose a threat far greater than anything the Empire has faced in its recorded history. Councillor Drevis, who had earlier suggested humans might have learned from the Empire's own aggressive history, now looked visibly shaken. The humans' warning about an ancient threat, could there be any truth to old, forgotten records within our own archives? Ashla nodded slowly. It's possible. Our historical records only extend a few hundred years before the Empire's rise. Older civilizations in this region may have possessed knowledge lost long before we ever gained galactic influence. Kelvex stood silently for a long moment, staring at the ominous energy reading on the screen. His pride, his confidence in Empire superiority, felt suddenly insignificant against the scale of what now approached. Contact Fleet Commander Varan, Kelvex finally said. Instruct him to establish full cooperation with the human fleet immediately. Whatever disagreements exist between our species, they must wait. Sir, Ashla said carefully, are we prepared to trust the humans given everything we've just learned about their secrecy? Kelvex's expression hardened with quiet resolve. We don't have the luxury of choice, Director. If this threat is truly as dangerous as both our own scans and human records suggest, our survival depends on cooperation, not suspicion. Within hours, Empire and human fleets began coordinating for the first time in history. Officers from both sides exchanged tactical data, working together to understand the approaching threat's capabilities and weaknesses. It was an uneasy alliance, filled with lingering distrust, but necessity outweighed old prejudices. Aboard the Dominion's Will, Varan stood beside a large display, watching combined fleet formations adjust in real time. Kessa approached him with a data pad in hand. Sir, human engineers have shared partial schematics of their shield technology. It's remarkably advanced. If integrated with our own systems, it could significantly improve our combined defense capability. Varan studied the schematics carefully, a mixture of professional respect and lingering unease crossing his face. 20 years, they said. 20 years to build all of this in secret. Does that trouble you, sir? Kessa asked. Varan considered the question seriously. It should trouble me. A species we once considered weak managed to hide something this significant from the Empire's intelligence networks for 2 decades. That is humbling, to say the least. But, Kessa prompted. But perhaps it also means the Empire underestimated them for good reason, Varan admitted quietly. Perhaps humanity's ability to plan carefully, to prepare quietly for threats others dismissed, is exactly the kind of strength our own empire has lacked in recent generations. Elsewhere on Elena's ship, Marcus watched similar cooperation unfolding across combined sensor networks. It's strange, isn't it? He said to Elena. After everything, working alongside the Empire like this? Necessity creates strange partnerships, Elena replied. Whether this cooperation lasts beyond the immediate threat remains to be seen. Do you trust them? Marcus asked directly. Elena considered the question carefully. I trust that survival instinct is a powerful motivator, Marcus. For now, that's enough to work with. As the combined fleets prepared their defenses, the massive unknown signature continued its steady approach. Sensors from both Empire and human ships worked tirelessly, gathering every piece of data possible about the mysterious threat. Slowly, a clearer picture began to emerge. The vessel, if it could even be called that, appeared less like a traditional warship and more like an enormous, living construct. Organic material fused seamlessly with dark, alien technology, unlike anything either species had previously encountered. "It's not just a machine," a human scientist reported during a joint briefing between Empire and human command staff. "Based on our scans, this entity appears to be part biological, part technological. Ancient records suggest the Devourers consumed both resources and knowledge from the civilizations they encountered, incorporating aspects of both into their own being over time." An Empire scientist, initially skeptical of human findings, studied the data carefully before nodding in reluctant agreement. "This would explain certain irregularities in the signature we've observed. If true, this creature, or vessel, whichever term applies, has existed and evolved for possibly thousands of years, growing stronger with each civilization it has encountered and destroyed." The weight of this revelation settled heavily across both fleets. Whatever they were about to face was not simply a powerful enemy ship, but an ancient, evolving force that had survived and grown for millennia. As final preparations were made, Elena stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the distant, ominous signature grow steadily closer on her main screen. Marcus approached quietly, standing beside her. "Whatever happens next," he said, "I want you to know, it was an honor serving under your command these past 15 years. Elena allowed herself a small, tired smile. "Let's hope this isn't a farewell speech, Marcus." "Just in case it is," he replied. Elena's gaze remained fixed on the screen, watching as combined Empire and human fleets took their final defensive positions. Despite the overwhelming uncertainty ahead, she felt a strange, quiet pride in what humanity had accomplished. For 40 years, the Empire and the wider galaxy had viewed humans as insignificant, weak, and unworthy of serious consideration. Today, that perception had been shattered entirely. Humanity had proven, through quiet determination and careful preparation, that it was far more capable than anyone had ever imagined. Whatever happened next, whether victory or defeat against this ancient, terrifying threat, one truth remained clear across the entire galaxy. The Empire had spent decades treating humanity as children, unworthy of true respect or serious consideration. Now, for the first time in 1,000 years, the Empire was afraid, and as the massive, ancient signature drew closer, filling every screen across both fleets with its terrifying presence, Elena Voss took a deep breath, steadying herself for whatever battle awaited humanity next. The fight for survival, for the fate of the entire galaxy, was only just beginning.